All right, we're back. Eric, how you doing?
Doing well. Happy to be, heading into the end of the year and into the holiday
Yes.
season. Lot to be thankful for as we go into this Thanksgiving week.
Yes.
Thankful for our partnership and the work that we've been doing here. I didn't tell you this before we came on, but I had a one of the young ladies who works for me as a nurse practitioner. Her husband's an OBGYN, and he was given a letter to hand to me thanking us for the slave food project and the work that we've been
Oh
doing.
man.
I have no idea how she drew the line from him to me, but I have the letter and I was really surprised. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting us since we started doing this, and we really appreciate.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I mean, there. I have a gratitude kind of report as well. About 2 weeks ago, we did an event with Healthy Heart Nation, the nonprofit and so forth that we run. And there was a young lady who was there, and I guess it's been several years ago that we had given, and I did an extension of a talk where we went on and gave like nutrition and some other advice in terms of this whole sequence. And so she took this to heart. I ain't even culture 101, anything else. She's lost 100 pounds,
Wow.
active every day, and was nearly in tears as she kind of reached out to me and said, I know you don't remember me, but this is what I have to say. What I told her is the same thing I tell
Wow.
everyone. That means more to me than you know, because what it means is that our efforts are
Wow.
really paying off for people. And that's what it's
Wow.
about. It's
What a
about
blessing.
changing lives.
Yeah, that's
So
powerful.
it is indeed a blessing, man. I'm thankful for you as well. I understand that you're cycling around this sun here, one
That's right.
additional year coming up.
That's right.
Happy
We
birthday.
on the day before Thanksgiving, and listen. Some people get all upset about getting older. As a doctor, I've learned there's only one other option. So
That's right.
I'm always real happy, always grateful, always thankful for every day God gives me in this life. We're this is a good week for us, and
Yes.
we're just praising God.
Absolutely. So you know what? We're going to get into this, a special, special, special show this time. And some of our faithful, we are somewhat transitioning. We're pivoting a little bit. And Dr. Walsh and myself, we're starting to kind of just break down facts and science to you ourselves. Not that our guests are not important, not that we don't enjoy bringing folks on, but we felt like let's be intentional. Let's give you more and let's give back to you a bit more. And so this week, we're going to focus on gratitude, the power, the transformative power of gratitude. So, you ready? Let's
Ready?
dive into this. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go at this. So, why don't you kick us off as we start?
We start off with this verse of scripture from the book of Philippians in the Bible, and this is one of those verses that really speaks to how we should look at life. It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And I just want to throw out there that even when I pray, I never start praying with a complaint or a request. I always start with thanksgiving, just as kind of this scripture kind of hints to. But there's something about being able to turn this thing over, and every time I did a message on breathing and air and health, and every breath we take is literally a gift.
Yes.
So we should be thankful in all things and in all ways, no matter how bad life looks. There's always something to be thankful for.
That's right. That's right. And there's always so much going on around us. The news is just filled with
Right.
tragedy on a regular basis. There's shootings, there's this, there's that, there's the other. And so it's easy to become anxious. And so being able to, in that old adage of stress equals demands minus resources, our stress or our anxiety is really that relationship, as you always say, demands minus resources, and understanding where our resources really lie
And,
becomes
and
important.
and one of the things we always talk about are having real resources, not fake ones.
Yes.
Getting drunk, getting high, getting so much caffeine that make you feel like you have energy. Those aren't real resources. They're fake resources. It will only ultimately add to your stress, your anxiety. Um, but when you're grateful, as we're going to talk about today, one of the things that gratitude does is it makes you realize all the real resources you already have. So
Yes.
that is a way to help bring your stress down naturally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You see, the stresses are not just here in the United States, it's all over statistically. I mean, it really even doesn't take researchers to tell us that there's stress pervasive throughout the entire world. Amongst the top leaders are us here in the United States across the board, right? That's irrespective of your financial status, that's irrespective of your ethnicity, your race at all. We're just a stressed people. That's the crazy part. The American Psychological Association told us the same thing. People are either anxious, they're sad, and more importantly, they're angry. They're angry. I mean, you drive down the roads in California, you see people just honking, that they're yelling, and down there, I recently read about a shooting, a celebrity. His car was shot at driving, going into the set and so forth from an angry driver. And so we're seeing this increase exponentially on a regular basis. So, I mean, the one thing I think that we all know is, you have your types of stress. You have eustress and you have distress. Distress is the bad form of stress. And there are differences in terms of who seems to be under greater amounts of distress or stress. And we see this on a regular basis. Eric, why don't you take that one?
So, we've been talking about this, and this is a fundamental part of our project here. But for many decades, research has shown that while Blacks or African Americans often have higher rates of psychological distress than whites, and many studies actually would support this.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. And so we understand that our health, we speak about our health equals resiliency divided by our stress. But if we really substitute resiliency or a form of resiliency as our gratitude, do you actually take time to say thank you and express true gratitude? And how does that reflect to our health? And what we want to propose to you today is that your gratitude index is directly related to your health index. The higher your gratitude, the better your health is what we want to demonstrate with you today. So I'm gonna kick it off in terms of one study that came out of course, it's a cardiology journal as a cardiologist. And so this one was published back several years ago now, about 4 years ago in 2018. And they were looking at the idea between the relationship between positive psychological well-being and cardiovascular health. Now, part of this includes at the core component gratitude. And this looked at over 70,000 older women. They followed them for about 8 years. And the women who were in the highest versus lowest amounts of optimism, of gratitude, had nearly 38% reduced risk of heart disease death and a 39% lower risk of strokes. And this is even after you adjusted for what someone's finances were, where they lived, things like that. And so this is very similar to other research studies that have shown very similar types of findings. And so this is powerful. It's powerful, number one, not just because of the data, but if you look at the journal that it was published in the medical community, that really seems to overlook aspects of gratitude or what's characterized as alternative medicine. This is an important step forward. It really, truly is.
That is very true.
So in this particular study, what researchers found is they found that their dispositional gratitude significantly moderated the relationships between socioeconomic status and interleukin-6. Now, interleukin-6 is a type of inflammatory marker that's secreted that is a precursor of disease. And so in individuals with low dispositional gratitude, which means they weren't grateful, they didn't really report being grateful, across the board, those who lived in higher socioeconomic status, right, they made more money, lived in cleaner neighborhoods, they had lower levels of interleukin-6 compared to those who lived in poverty. But here's the key, that when you had the association between socioeconomic status and interleukin-6 was not significant among individuals with high dispositional gratitude. That means that if you're living in poverty, but you're grateful for what you have, my mom grew up in New Orleans, and my grandmother, my mom was born at Charity Hospital. I never knew that was, like I always say, was really an indigent hospital. My mom never, since growing up poor, I never realized any certain aspects of it because grateful. You were surrounded by love and care in this sense that you never knew that you had less than someone else or didn't care about it at all. And that's really powerful when you look at the fact that it can actually impact your health and information.
And that makes sense, because if you are grateful for what you have, you're rich. right?
Yes.
Because you're focused on positive, on what you have. You're not focused on what you don't have, and so you're rich because you're emotionally full. Like I said, you're rich with family and relationships. So gratitude is one of the ways to actually increase your internal net worth in a sense, because you notice all of those things that actually do contribute to life and happiness.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that. That's good. That's good. And this is not just in the United States. Actually, in England, they found a very similar type of relationship. But this one, they found that individuals that they're in England who they surveyed, there's a direct relationship, a correlation between gratitude expressions and improved stress levels. But not just that, lower depression levels. And I think mental health is such a major issue. I know that you must see this every day inside your business and urgent care and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of anxiety and depression we see, we just launched a behavioral health component ourselves, and because of how much we see. So, anything that can reduce this, and I think our hyper consumer culture that we have really damages people's ability to be grateful.
Yes.
If you're looking at all these people, influencers with their private jets and their Bentleys and the entertainers and the sports figures and the billionaires, you can feel pretty empty. And so what'll happen is, instead of appreciating what you have, you want what everyone else has, and that will depress you, right? That you raise the demands on yourself, so you raise the stress levels. But we get lost because we think that's what makes people happy. And I can tell you, as a physician that's worked in front lines for many years, some of the most unhappy people I know are some of the wealthiest. So
That's right.
it's really important that no matter what you have, give thanks, be grateful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This one hits home. I think what became uncovered is something that's been persistent for a while is physician burnout, physician stress, healthcare provider burnout. And what this study showed is that by simply keeping a gratitude diary for 2 weeks, not 2 years, it produced sustained reductions in perceived stress by 28% and depression by 16% in healthcare practitioners. And I think over the past 3-4 years, we've heard about the suicide rate in physicians. Yeah, it's something else that we have to take a few moments. It's easy to be so overwhelmed and have this fatigue, compassion fatigue.
Well, and let me say this: I think one of the reasons suicide can creep in these situations is what happens in suicide is that oftentimes people are focusing on what's wrong, again, what they don't have. The hopelessness that comes with it. Gratitude is literally the anecdote, because if you're saying, you know what, I'm thankful I had a bowl of cereal this morning. I'm thankful I have a job to go to. I'm thankful I have family that loves me. If you stay there, you don't notice the things that are going wrong so readily, or at least they don't have the emotional influence on you that they otherwise would. Gratitude is literally the anecdote to those feelings of despair, because you stop and notice. And I've read, I remember going to Israel, and I went to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem and heard some of the survivors of the Holocaust. And I couldn't, at the time I was young, but I just couldn't understand, how could they be so happy? How could they be so strong? And they learned, I remember one lady saying, and she was like one of the only ones in her family to survive, but she learned to be grateful for what she did have, even when everything was taken from her. And that's how she survived and, grown into old age almost, because she believed, that she had to be thankful for what she did have. And, so I think our whole world looks different when we say, I'm thankful for this small thing over here that someone else may not even have.
That's right. That's right. And I think one of the things we're learning, and we're going to see even more so, is that it doesn't come natural to us.
Right.
It doesn't come natural to us. That's why you tell your kids, say thank you, be grateful, send a thank you note. It's not natural for us. We have to really counteract that natural inclination to not do those things, to go into a shell. And that takes effort. But when we do it, the rewards are tremendous as it relates to it. And that's why I love this slide here. It says gratitude is related to 23% lower levels of stress hormone, that cortisol level. That fight or flight that's there, that we know that activates, that when you see a trigger on that television, the news station, that triggers your anxiety, and that stress hormone cascade starts to increase and percolate. when you're driving down, you see certain situations or other automobiles and so forth, that stress level percolates up, that this is something that can help offset it, which is so important. A simple, simple, simple tool.
Yeah,
Powerful.
and I would say, this is what this is a way for the science and what we believe, but this is a way for biomarker like cortisol to actually prove that it brings down your stress levels, because that's really what this is saying. And all by itself, this isn't a whole lot, but when you add in a lot of all the other things we talk about on the Slave Food Project around eating and exercise and good sleep, you realize you can actually really bring down your stress hormone levels. And what that means is your circumstances might not change, but the impact your circumstances have on your health can definitely be changed. And
Yeah.
that's really what's important, especially for us here in America, where things get quite stressful.
Absolutely. What was it? Chuck Swindoll, who said life is 90% how you respond, only 10% what actually happens to you.
Right?
And this is
Absolutely.
one of the things that helps you in terms of response. This other slide says 2 gratitude activities, counting blessings and gratitude letter writing reduce the risk of depression in at-risk patients by 41% over a 6-month period. So this really kind of echoes what we just discussed about the role and relationship of stress
Absolutely.
and depression. And this is actually important. This is what you were kind of speaking to. So I'll
Yep.
let you take this one.
So when they find that when someone is told to write a letter of gratitude, it can actually reduce the feelings of hopelessness. And that happened in like 88% of suicidal inpatients and increased levels of optimism in 94% of them. One of the things that we read from the book of Philippians, but it is a recurring theme throughout the scripture, that you are to give thanks, right? And obviously there are two ways that you're thankful. There's a thankfulness to those who have helped you. So there's an outward relational thankfulness with your fellow man, with your parents, with your spouse, your coworkers. You're thankful for what they do for you. But there's another form of gratitude that is not necessarily a higher sense of gratitude, but it's more ubiquitous. And that one is that we're thankful for what is being done for us by the creator. Like we're thankful for what we're given, like our breath, like something that people can't give us. Once you get to that point, you realize how blessed you are. I would imagine that a lot of that hopelessness begins to dissipate as you realize, wait, I need to have hope, because obviously there's a force doing good for me all the time. And that is life changing once you recognize that.
Absolutely. But I'm going to add the one, I think, secret thing that oftentimes is overlooked, especially inside this world and society we live in, is that the key is writing a letter. Writing a
Writing
letter,
it out.
putting pen to paper. I think there is power that's there. I know that when I'm seeing a patient and when I actually type or write down physically, word by word, I don't copy and paste the history, it cements in my being. And I can go and patients will say, well, how can you tell me, man, you must be incredibly smart. I'm like, no, not really. But there is a sequence, there's a neurological interplay that happens that when you're putting it pen to paper, whether or not it's my to-do list, whether or not it's other things, I think it's so important in our lives that we have to do so we can remember. It's so easy to forget. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's easy to forget. This I think this is important, especially for all of us in this day and age. We've seen that on the rise of alcohol abuse, of people turning to fake resources
Yep.
as it relates to dealing with stressors. And what this study really points out is that grateful people are less likely to disengage socially, abuse substances, and self-blame than ungrateful people. Now, why this is important is that when we talk about disengaging socially, what we understand is that the natural tendency is that I'm stressed, I just want to go and isolate myself. Well, that's not what you need. That when you engage in conversation, you release oxytocin, that love
That's
hormone,
right.
that you have the tendon befriend that begins to
Right.
dilate the vessels, and it causes this bonding to occur. And that's has healing properties on the heart, lowering the blood pressure. And so there's so much power that's there in relationships that's key. And so being grateful, we see an association between these things, which is powerful.
And I'll self-disclose a little bit. One of the things that I think sometimes I've suffered from is self-blame. You look back on your life and you say, man, if I'd have just done this, and man, if I'd have just done that. And you look at the mistakes you've made and you want to sit there, but that's what the enemy wants us to do. He wants us to sit in a space of self-blame, self-pity. But when you're grateful, you realize, despite my mistakes, I'm actually doing all right. When you're grateful, you focus on what you did do right and what did turn out right and all the things that you have been blessed with rather than all the opportunities you missed. And that's why this is such an important study here. And the results of it are very powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now this is turning more practical, and we're looking at health. So we talked about mental health a lot with this, but let's get down to the nuts and bolts of things. Is that grateful people, they have 16% lower diastolic, that's that bottom number on your blood pressure, and 10% lower systolic blood pressure compared to those who are less grateful. This is powerful when we're looking at the prediction of stroke and of cardiovascular events. And that when we see that this combination of the effects of our mind, body, and spirit in terms of how we relate and express what's on the inside in terms of gratitude, the power that it can have with us.
And the funny thing is, there are medications we'll give you that won't have these
Correct. Correct.
if it's sustained, at least, because you develop tolerance to them and stuff. There are medications we give you, it doesn't really work for you, and you won't get these numbers that you see put up here just from being grateful.
And, I mean, I know there's going to be some, I won't say haters out there, but some skeptics out there saying, well, is that causation or is that correlation? And my thing, to be honest with you, is I don't care. I'm seeing the powerful benefits of it. So, yes, is it likely that when you adopt a grateful spirit, that you're likely to encompass other positive attributes too as well, that you might be inclined to eat healthier, which studies have shown, to exercise more, to sleep better, all these other variables which will play a role? Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. But here's the thing. It says also grateful people, including people grateful to God, have between 9 and 13% lower levels of hemoglobin A1C. Now, what is that for those of you who don't know? This is, think of it, it's like your blood becomes crystallized when the sugar is just kind of sitting and coursing through. When your body can't absorb all the sugar you're eating from either the foods or just pure sugar, it floats inside your bloodstream and it's crystallizing your red blood cells that then we'll check. We'll go in and we'll check. Right. And we'll see. And the higher this percent of your blood cells that are crystallized, I'm using this as an example, it's reflective that you're a diabetic and the control of your diabetes.
Grateful. So gratitude not only is a good blood pressure lower, it actually can help manage diabetes. So that's powerful.
Yes. This one's important. Many times I talk about this as, from a angle of a cardiologist, is that you have three layers inside your blood vessels, which supply everything from your head to your toes, results in strokes, to impotence, to heart failure, to peripheral vascular disease. And so this inner lining came under great attention over the past couple of years during COVID as a portal of entry that individuals with damaged endothelium, hypertensive patients, heart disease patients, that they were more inclined to develop this. And so what this study really has revealed is that optimism and gratitude were associated with lower markers of endothelial dysfunction. That means that not only the chemicals and hormones that are reflective in the healthy endothelium, but also in terms of the responsiveness of the endothelium. Now, let me make it a little bit plainer. Imagine if you had like a garden hose, and that garden hose, you pressed on it. It should have a certain amount of bounce back. If that garden hose gets rigid and there's no bounce back to it, it's going to crack. You know it's dysfunctional. It's not functioning well. That's the same as your arteries. When they don't have that bounce back, when they don't have that resiliency inside of them, that's where there becomes an issue that leads to high blood pressure, diabetes, and all the other dysfunctional health problems.
Absolutely.
This study here is once again looking at heart failure and gratitude, and basically showed that individuals with higher levels of gratitude scores, it decreased the inflammation. We understand heart failure is this composite. It can be a reduced heart function. It can be too stiff. It's oftentimes marked by inflammation and marked by an increased sympathetic tone. And what this study showed is that there's the reduced inflammatory biomarkers as well as increased parasympathetic heart rate variability, which means that that's beneficial for the heart overall. And that this was developed during gratitude journaling, which means putting pen to paper. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Why don't you take this one with Miss?
Yeah, Angela Bassett, of course, still looks amazing, and has just recently started another big movie But this one says, based on 57 studies on the subject, a review in the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology concludes psychological stress can trigger skin inflammation. So that's powerful. So all we've talked about with stress, we talk about inside the body, but can actually trigger skin inflammations. It can exacerbate pre-existing conditions where stress is the main trigger, including psoriasis, eczema, and acne. And expressing gratitude reduces cortisol levels, boosting your immune system's ability to repair skin cells. So, gratitude is not just good for what's going on inside of you; it's good for how you present to others in terms of your skin.
That's right. That's right. So being completely vain for folks, for some people, right? The more grateful you are, the more youthful you'll look. The more grateful you are, you'll have that smooth kind of chocolatey or caramel or vanilla skin that's flawless. And that's what people are searching for in this world. And so imagine if you get it without all the chemicals you're adding to your face by just simply adopting one component of many things we speak about. And this component is that of gratitude, on top of healthful eating, on top of sleeping, on top of water consumption, and adequate amounts of sunlight, not too much. Powerful. All right, Eric, I'm gonna let you take this one too as well.
So sleep, I've just done a lot of research and reading on sleep. Gratitude is related to a 10% improvement in sleep quality in patients with chronic pain, 76% of whom had insomnia, and 90% lower depression levels. So gratitude impacts your sleep, obviously, because you bring down stress levels. But sleep, one of the things that happens is that if you have, especially like post-traumatic problems, post-traumatic stress problems, you should get a noradrenaline rush in the brain while you sleep that can cause problems. Gratitude, if it brings down stress, it brings down all of those things, and contributes to improved sleep. And what improved sleep does for you is so much.
Yes.
Everything from appetite control to creativity to better grades on tests. So gratitude is the key to really launching like a ripple effect of other good things happening in your life.
Absolutely. I mean, I love this one. This is powerful, and we'll touch on like steps we can take in order to do it. But what are the benefits, right? It's mind, body, spirit. We talk about the psychological benefits, a happier you, a physical benefits, a fitter you, and social benefits, the better you. So I mean, I think that it's just the benefits of gratitude are tremendous. They really
Absolutely.
are. All right. So I love this. I stumbled on this a while back, right? And so there's even an app for it, and it's a free app. But it just basically what it does is about 30 minutes, I believe it is, before you go to bed, just writing down 3 good things that have happened to you. And I didn't even know this existed. I was seeing a patient inside of clinic one day, and this patient of mine I had for years. Talked to her about many dietary changes, about medications and all the et cetera. And she did some, but didn't do it fully. And unfortunately had a stroke, a massive stroke. And so I saw her and she appeared so sad, and her daughter was there, and there wasn't a lot for me to do from a medical standpoint. Right. But as I sat there, I just held her hand and we spoke for a while. And she said, and I said, you know what I want you to do every day? Here's my prescription for you. I want you to write down, I told her 5 things that you're grateful for every single day. If someone holds the door open for you, write that down. If someone lets you in a lane, right, in a jam-packed traffic.
Surviving a freeway.
That's right. That's right. Something that you're grateful for. If someone smiles at you, something you're grateful for. I mean, just very simple things of life, everyday things. Write those things down and reflect on it. But the purpose of journaling it is that you can look back and see what God has done for you throughout your life and in the past bit, so you can really truly give thanks.
Absolutely.
So that's the authentic happiness strategy is the one thing that's there.
And so, again, we highlight kind of a passage of scripture: rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances. And I kind of want to tie a bow on this by saying what I've learned is, but you've got to be able to praise God in the storm. You got to be able to be able to give thanks when you've lost even a lot. You've got to be able to stop and say, you know what, I'm happy and I'm grateful because I still have whatever I am left with. And sometimes that's life. I mean, there are people who lose everything in a fire. I mean, when I lived in California, you'd see these harrowing stories, fires rip through, people lose in a blink of an eye everything they've ever had. And it's not even wealth. This is pictures of their children that all of them are now burned up. And they're standing on the side of the road. And I'm always so kind of empowered almost when you see that family standing and they turn to each other and they say, listen, we're just happy. We're thankful that we have each other, that we still have each other. We're thankful that we're alive. And you begin to realize that no matter what your circumstances, there are things to be thankful for.
Yes, that's true. I mean, you put a bow on it. That's the whole key right there, is whether it's in good times or bad times, to be thankful. And just remember, like Chuck Swindoll, we brought it up already, life literally is not, it's just 90% how you respond, 10% what happens to you. We have to be able to change our inside, how we respond. And the only way we can do that is refocusing our energy, refocusing, our resources, of where our resources lie, in order to kind of have some sort of hope that we can garner on.
I love it. And I encourage every family this Thanksgiving, before you dig into whole food, plant-based, healthy Thanksgiving, I encourage you to, I do this with my family. Everybody hold hands and we go around the room and talk about what is it that we're grateful for. What happened to us since last Thanksgiving that we're happy about? And you're surprised when people stop and really think about it. They graduated. They got a promotion. They moved into a new house. They survived a harrowing accident or even a bad diagnosis. But if you're thankful, there's always something to be thankful for. And by kind of collectively giving our testimonies to one another, we will encourage each other. I am most encouraged by people who seem to have so little, but they're so thankful. And I've seen that as I travel the world, going to other countries, seeing people so grateful. Being in Africa and seeing how happy and just grateful people were, even when they didn't have as much as we in America might think you should have. They had more than us in many ways, because with less, they were actually happier. And that's because they're grateful for their families and for those intangible things. Where we're looking for Bentleys, they're looking for relationship. And I want to encourage everybody this Thanksgiving, foster a relationship with the family. Talk about what you're thankful for. Talk about, and even almost prophesy on each other as to what you're going to be thankful for this year to come. That what is God going to do good for you in the next 12 months until the next Thanksgiving.
Love it, love it, love it. That's right. Happy Thanksgiving. You know what? Share this with the family. Watch it with the family. This is going to drop, obviously, on the 22nd of November. Watch this, then watch it on Thanksgiving. Watch it on the Friday. Watch it on the Saturday. Be sure to like us on YouTube at Slave Food Project, and share this. Continue to support. We appreciate you. We're very thankful for you and all that you've done for encouraging us. All right. We'll see you next time.